how running really stuck for me was my dad was unwell and he was losing mobility in his body. And it made me realise how lucky I am to be able to move my body. Wimbledon half with Mole was so much fun. We had such a good day. We kind of went into it like, we're just going to have a fun, good day. We're not going to focus on the time. And no one could leave me alone for more than like 3 seconds because I would just burst into tears. The minute I was by myself, I would like just be awash with so much emotion. I am Misha Grimes. I am 24 years old, 25 in February, which feels quite scary, not going to lie. In my head, I'm still about 18. And I'm one of those people that post their life on the internet. And that has naturally progressed over like the last 6 or 7 years. What started very much with like fashion and beauty has kind of transcended into much more lifestyle, running, workouts, food, still a bit of fashion, still a little bit of beauty. And basically how I see it as just what anyone my age would want to see and would relate to is what I post on my social media.
Where did that all start then? Take me all the way back to, like you say, 6, 7 years ago. How did it start? When was that first click on that post button, essentially?
This is the wild thing. Like, it feels like yesterday, but it also feels like a different lifetime ago because I started when I was 17. This is all I've ever known. Like, I never really had like a proper job. This is it for me. So when I was about 15, even maybe when I was about 13, I kept on recording videos and never posting them because I just didn't have the confidence to put it out there. And I feel like it's very difficult when you're like at school and everyone's judging you and, you know, you don't need that extra layer of like, I was already a very different kid. So having that on top, I was like, I'm just going to be too different. But then I kind of grew up a little bit, realized this is something that I actually wanted to do. And I didn't know that it was a career. I didn't know that people like lived their lives doing this. I just saw it as I was a 17-year-old girl that liked to talk about makeup I was putting on my face or the clothes I was wearing. And I wanted to talk to a camera. So I did. And I posted my first video. And then I think it was about like my 4th or my 5th video that went like pretty viral. And it's got over like 700,000 views. And I credit being here now to that video growing the way that it did, because otherwise I could have, you know, just stayed uploading for the rest of my life and I may not have ever reached people. So I'm very lucky that I got that break with that video. But I also think it's not just luck. It's also 4 years. I think I uploaded 3 or 4 times a week on YouTube. And YouTube was kind of like where it started. And now it's across YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, a little bit of everything.
There will be people listening to this, obviously, that haven't, you know, had a content schedule and haven't posted consistently.
Yeah.
But it is a grind, isn't it?
Yeah, it truly is. I take hats off to younger Misha. Obviously, I was very lucky that, you know, I was young and I could still live at home. So I had the flexibility to do it and not have to worry about like paying the mortgage or anything like that. But the hours I put in, I remember I didn't used to go to sleep until like 3 a.m. every night because I would not rest until I knew that I had my next upload, because I saw it as the more I put myself out there, the more chance I have of people seeing me, the more chance I have of growing. And I still definitely stand by that. And I feel like that's me with TikTok nowadays. People are probably like, does she want to upload any more TikToks? Because there's like 5th TikTok of the day. And I'm like, the more I'm out there, the more people will either hate me or love me, but at least they'll see me.
Was there a goal at that point? Like, because we'll get on to running at a point in the future in this conversation, but
Yeah.
running's a very goal-orientated thing. You'll have like goal of a distance, goal of a time. Like when you're growing like that on social, are you thinking this is where I want to get to, or is it just kind of day by day consistency?
I would say it's quite funny. I'm not a competitive or like goal orientated person. Somewhat I am, but not like on numbers. And I feel like social media is very numbers based. And there definitely was a time where I was really focused on, you know, how many views things got, how many likes things got. But as I've kind of grown up in this space, I've realized that that is not the be all and end all. And although we're going to get onto running, it's funny that that's been like my thing that brings out like a more competitive side in me. And then in my like actual life, I am so not competitive. Like I I don't know, I just kind of, I wouldn't say I go with the flow because I'm probably far too uptight to go with the flow in terms of anybody else commenting on my life. But with social media, I've kind of just seen it as, I'm so lucky to have this platform. I'm going to ride this wave for as long as I can. I'm going to keep grinding. I'm going to keep going, because there might be a timeline, there might be an end point, and I don't know that. I'm obviously in control of what I'm doing, but I'm not in control of the internet. I'm not in control of the platform that gives me a job. So I kind of have always seen it as, I'm going to keep going for as long as I can. I'm going to, you know, take all I can get from it, take all the experiences. And then when I'm old and grey, I can look back and be like, wow, look, we can watch loads of videos of me from when I was like 18 on the internet.
When did it kind of shift from, you know, like you said at the start of the conversation, kind of more like that early stage to like full lifestyle, full sharing your whole life and your whole story? When was that change made?
I think it was probably about 2 years in, which again, I feel like people don't necessarily think about. I think a lot of people think they're going to go on social media and like blow up instantly. But I was grafting every single day for 2 years, didn't earn a penny. I just loved what I did. I absolutely loved posting videos and I loved having that interaction with other people. I also think that's kind of how it's worked out like this, because I didn't go in with the mindset of, I want to make money, I want to do this, I want to do that. Like every brand that wanted to work with me at the beginning, I was gobsmacked that they wanted to work with me. Like, how has that happened? How have I been shopping from this brand for years and then suddenly, you know, they want to send me something? And I think it still doesn't feel real now. It still feels like I'm in some like make-believe bubble. But I think that's kind of how the shift happened naturally, because that wasn't my goal from the beginning. My goal was to enjoy it and have fun. And then brands obviously started to get behind that. And now I'm very, very grateful and can't believe that this is what it's become, because 17-year-old Misha would never have believed that.
When did running first enter the group chat, if you will?
So running first entered, and it's really funny because I feel like a lot of people relate to when they started running. And it was when COVID, you know, that crazy thing that happened. So when everyone started doing those 5K, it was like Virgin something, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
there was some sort
do 5, donate 5, that one.
Yes, yeah. Exactly that. Yeah. And I genuinely think I'd probably gone on one run before in my life. One run, that was it. Like, otherwise, absolutely no clue. Obviously, you couldn't go out unless you were going on a run. So it was kind of like, I don't want to go crazy, locked up in my house. So I'm going to do this £5 for 5K thing. And I feel like I maybe went on like 1 or 2 runs at the beginning of COVID, but it never really stuck. Like, it was just an excuse to get outside. How running really stuck for me was my dad was unwell and he was losing mobility in his body. And it made me realize how lucky I am to be able to move my body. And it kind of gave me that escapism from my home life and from my own brain to just go out, blast some music, be in nature. I think that's also why I love running outside. I'm not an indoor runner. I'm not a running machine runner. And I think because being outside makes me feel a lot freer, rather than if I'm, you know, staring at something in the gym or on a treadmill, it doesn't feel the same. So for me, that's how running kind of came into my life. And then it truly stuck. And I signed up to my first marathon after my dad passed away, because it was something that I'd started whilst he was here. I wanted to continue that. It almost feels like a legacy, even though he never ran, but I would chat about my runs every time I came back. And like, we'd compare where I went, because, you know, although he couldn't do that, he still knew where I was. So it always felt like I was taking my dad on the runs with me, which is why I know is the reason that I run, and the only reason that I've stuck with it after all these years.
And that is going to be an amazing thing that you're going to be able to carry through your life, right? That's always going to be there, and you're always going to relate running to your dad, which is going to, you know, that's going to be a real special thing as you continue on your not only running journey, but your life journey as well. That must feel quite special that you've managed to kind of link the two.
Yeah, I think, obviously, I hope not everyone has that link, because I wouldn't want anybody else to have to experience that. But I do think it's like learning your link and learning why you run is the thing that keeps you going, because you hear so many people that like sign up to a race and then do a training block for the race, and then the race finishes, and then they don't run for like a year, and then they sign up to another race. And I feel like that cycle we all do like in life anyway. But with running, I feel like if you focus on like the mental health benefits, or just like getting the fresh air and getting outside, or, you know, maybe it's how you cope with something else in your life, that's the thing that like keeps on getting you out the door. Because don't get me wrong, no one in freezing cold January wants to go on a run. Like, let's be real. I do think like out of all the runs that I do, maybe 50% of them I actually truly enjoy. But I know how much good they're doing for me. And then when you have that run that you enjoy that week, you're like, this is why I run. This is why I love doing it. And like, I won't lie, the past like 2 months, I haven't really been on like my best running mindset. And then my last 2 runs have been like the runs that remind me, this is why you do it. This is why you love it. And I'm grateful that I've got that, because I needed that. I needed that like positive re-encouragement from my runs.
The word privilege, it's an interesting one. It's something I use a lot, which, but like when you said it, kind of sparked me. You know, in a difficult position, a difficult session, a difficult race, like one thing I always tell myself, and everyone has different things that they tell themselves, but mine is, it's a privilege to be able to do this. Like I always tell myself, if I'm in a difficult position, it's a privilege. Not everybody gets to do that. Is that something that you kind of go to as well?
Yeah, definitely. In like the hard moments, I just think back to the fact that I actually get to do this, and not everybody does. And you are lucky to have the body that you have, and you are lucky to be able to live in a place where you can go outside and run freely. And that is definitely the mindset that I go to when I've got, you know, a few K left and I just want to stop and I just want to walk. And I just think, well, what would my dad do? My dad wouldn't give up. So looks like you're not giving up, Misha. You don't get the choice.
A lot of people talk about their first marathon and like clicking that button that's like enter. For me, it's not normally that. It's when your email dings and it's like, oh, right, okay, they've actually told me that I'm now in this race and I'm actually doing it. When that email came through that said, hey, Misha, you're running a marathon, what was that moment like?
I don't think I really processed what I was doing, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I had ran one 10K before signing up to the marathon. My first marathon was Brighton, which again was kind of like a 360 moment, because one of my like memories of my dad is that he would always be out on his bike. He would always be going on these like cycling holidays and doing these cycling races. And he did this cycling race, which I think it was London to Brighton. So the finish line was in Brighton. And the 360 moment of it all was that the finish line was exactly where my marathon finish line was. So like, I've got a photo of my dad holding a medal, and I've got like the exact same photo in the exact same spot.
Good.
So it's like, Brighton wouldn't have necessarily been the marathon that I would have thought to choose from like the outsider's perspective. I never would have thought, oh yeah, let Brighton be your first marathon. But I feel like Brighton kind of chose me, because when I signed up, I didn't really realise that that was where my dad had raced. I didn't realise that photo existed. And then how it all transpired was kind of like, okay, that was the race that I was meant to do. But going into it, I think it wasn't until I did my first half marathon. And that was in, let's say, like February. I signed up in November. And then February, I did my first half marathon. And then I think April was the marathon. I did the half marathon, and I actually ended up being really happy with how it turned out to be and my time and everything. But I also pooped myself, because I was like, no, I've actually got to do that twice. That's a lot.
It's when you finish and have that moment, you're like, oh dear.
You're like, oh, I'm so happy with that. I'm so proud of that. And then you're like, oh, wait, no, I've actually got to do that twice over. And I think it was the wake-up call, and it was also the wake-up call from my boyfriend, that he was a bit like, he was like looking through my previous runs, and he was like, I think we might need to step it up a little bit, because like, you're kind of going into this blind otherwise. And like, I didn't want to not train fully, like I wanted to fully get into the experience. And after that, it was the wake-up call that I needed. He was right, even though I never wanted to admit it to him. It was kind of a kick up the bum that got me back out there and back actually doing all my training runs. But again, I feel like that time of year, you get ill all the time. There's so much going on. Like, I take my hats off to anyone that fully completes their marathon plan. I don't think I ever will. I don't think it's within me. You know, I'm going for a solid like 90% full, maybe an 85% at that point.
To be honest, if you're hitting 90%, I think that's incredibly impressive. They're
Yeah.
brutal. Like the training's brutal, the race is
Hmm.
brutal, and crossing that line is made even more special because of that brutality of everything around it.
Yeah.
And on the line, when you get that medal around your neck, when you do cross the line of your first marathon in Brighton, how are you reflecting of that? Is it a straight away thing? You're like, oh my God, I've done it? Or is it a wait a couple of months and then look back and think, oh my God, that was an amazing thing?
I think I basically just cried. I won't
Yeah.
lie, but I feel like that's quite a common reaction. Um, it was really strange, like the whole day of the marathon. I felt like I was floating. I didn't even feel like I was running the marathon. I don't know if I had certain someone helping me along the way, but like having now done another one, I realised that that was a first time marathon experience, and they are not all that easy. But yeah, I was just floating the whole day, and I was really surprised that I wasn't getting upset during the race. And it went back to that whole mentality of I'm grateful to be here, I'm lucky to be here. I can't believe that I'm doing this. I can't believe that I get to be in that top 1% or 5%, whatever it is. And then I feel like once I crossed that finish line is when it all hit me, and I realized the weight of what I'd done. And no one could leave me alone for more than like 3 seconds because I would just burst into tears. The minute I was by myself, I would like just be awash with so much emotion. I will say I did definitely get the like post-marathon blues,
Yeah.
which is so a thing. It's like the post-holiday blues. Like you've been working towards something for so many months, and then you've done it, and you're like, oh, like that's it. Like that, and I feel like that's probably how people really easily fall out of running, because it's like, oh well, I've done that now, and then it's like, oh well, now I feel a bit sad about running because I don't have that thing to aim
Yeah.
towards. And I feel like that's the important time to get back out there and continue like the positive habit, because I feel like training for a race is what gets you in the habit, and then you like almost don't want to break that habit, because I know the minute you like don't run for like a month, a run then feels so like difficult. So it's definitely like muscle memory. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's really weird. I wish I could relive the day of Brighton. I wish I could relive it once a month, just because I genuinely think it was up there with one of the best days of my life. And although it had a very like sad note attached to it, it felt like, well, something bad's happened, I'm making a positive out of it.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky that like me and my whole family very much see it like that. And we see that, we're lucky to move our bodies, and we're lucky to have had my dad for as long as we did. Um, and that is definitely the thing that kept me going. And then also the thing that even after was like, okay, well, I started this for him. Just because I finished the race doesn't mean I finished the end of my running journey. I want to continue this.
Yeah. I think it's structure as well, isn't it? Like just having that structure. Like I know sticking to a plan 90% is like not 100%, but no one's ever going to stick to it 100% because your life's, doesn't it? Like
Yeah,
things
exactly.
happen. But to have that structure of even 90%, even 50% of a plan,
Yeah.
and right, I need to get out the door, I need to do this type of run, I need to do my long run, I need to do my session. Like having structure to your life, that's what it helps me with anyway. And that
Definitely.
sounds like it's similar for you.
Yeah, I mean, I've not got a normal structured life with what I
No.
do. So I feel like exercise is the thing that structures my life. And like I'm an AM runner, an AM
Yeah.
workout person. I cannot be running in the evening when I've had my full meal. Like I will just be
Me too.
sick. Um, so definitely for me, it's like the thing that gets you out the door in the morning, and it's the thing that like starts up your day. I now can't imagine not being like that. And it's really funny because even for like my boyfriend, when we first got together, exercise was not important in my life. Like it wasn't part of my daily routine. It wasn't a big part of my life. And now I reflect on how it would be more weird not to do those things than to do those things.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I've had that 360, because it keeps you on the straight and narrow. It does keep you kind of in check. And don't get me wrong, like I love to travel. So this year has not been about fitness goals. I had the marathon this year, Leeds Marathon in May, but even that, it was the first Leeds Marathon for motor neurone disease, which is what my dad passed away from. So that's why I was doing it. I wasn't doing it to, get a better time than Brighton. I was doing it for the experience. I was doing it to also do it with my boyfriend and him running his first marathon. But this whole year for me hasn't necessarily been about like fitness goals. It's just been about doing what I can when I'm here. Because don't get me wrong, I love a holiday. And you go in with the mindset when you go on holiday that you're gonna run, and then you don't, and that's fine because you pick it back up when you get home. And like I think it's good that I always have that to go back to. Like I know I'm coming back, I know I'm getting back into routine, I know that that will help me, you know, like navigate my life back to normal.
Even just have the option to run on
Yeah,
holiday though, that's cool, eh? Like you're saying to yourself, like I could go to the gym or I could go for a run, whereas maybe 5 years ago that wouldn't have even been a question in your
yeah.
head, and
And
maybe
my favorite thing is exploring a new place by
yeah,
running because
there
you
you
see
go,
so much more. It's
exactly.
wild. You're like, it would take me about 4 hours to walk around here, and then you go on a run and you see so much in so much less time.
One thing that I've found by speaking to quite a few creators now is like, and you've already talked about this, the consistency of posting, right? The
Hmm.
consistency of like creating content and getting it up. And that's relatability to training, not just running, but any
Hmm.
sport is
Hmm.
is like, I mean, it's so similar. And being consistent, whether it's on a plan or not, getting back
Yeah.
into your consistency, that's something that a lot of creators seem to have. And I think there might be like a parallel between the two.
I can see how that would work. It's one of those things, you know, if you work for yourself in any job,
Yeah.
um, it's on you. And it's the same with working out and running. Like, it's on you. Nobody else can run for you. Nobody else can do our uploads for us. Like, you either step up to the plate or you don't. And maybe that's where, like, it's kind of created similar habits in terms of running and in terms of content creation. I can see how that has worked. And, like,
Yeah.
it's so great from, like, a space of, I started running maybe like 3 years ago now. And when I first got into it, it was in the online space, but it wasn't in the online space like it is now. And it's so great from my perspective to have seen the like love for running grow over, I'd say, like past year. And now everyone's running,
I
and you
know.
know, everywhere you go, people are posting about running. And I think it's so great that a social space that can be good, can be bad, has become so positive for running and encouraged so many people to run.
It's cool as well because it's not just like creators encouraging their audience, but it's like people that enjoy to run, like just taking the
Hmm.
creator title off it, encouraging their friends as well. And you've actually
Yeah.
recently done that. You were with us at Wimbledon, and your
Yes.
best pal was down there and got a PB. Like
Yeah.
sharing running with somebody, being able to go out and do that, that is a special feeling when you're able to share it with someone else, and it's even sometimes better than doing it yourself.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've never done a big long race by myself, and I feel like the thought of that is terrifying because I've always seen them as like a shared experience,
Yeah.
whether it's been with like a friend or my boyfriend. But yeah, running Wimbledon half with Mol was so much fun. We had such a good day. We kind of went into it like we're just gonna have a fun, good day. We're not gonna focus on the time. And I feel like that's probably why she got a PB because she wasn't like pressuring herself that like he's checking at this mile and this mile. And at the end of the day, like obviously everyone wants to run their races, they want to hit their goals, but running is to be enjoyed. And I feel like sometimes when you focus too much on your time, you kind of lose that. And I feel like that's why the half was so good for me because it reminded me as to why I love to run because we just had such a good time. We were playing our music, you know, we were running through the mud. It was absolute chaos. My trainers are not the same.
Yeah.
They are not okay. But it was worth it for the memories.
Where does your running journey go from here?
Well, there's definitely some goals for next year, which I'm excited about. I'm anxious for. I am keeping them under wraps a little bit,
Okay, okay, okay,
because I can't help myself. I've
okay.
always got to make everything a bigger deal than it ever
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
It's just how I am. But yeah, for this side of the year, it's just to keep consistent, you know, keep with what I'm doing. You know, 2 or 3 runs a week, just keeping it happy. And then I am that person that loves to go into January like hitting the ground running. And I know it's like so traditional and so cliche, but I just think it's a good month because everybody else is doing it. So then it's like, well, if they're doing it, then I'm doing it. And you kind of just inspire each other just to, you know, focus on yourself. I used to think that January was a really rubbish month and it was really depressing and really like sad and miserable. And now I kind of see it as it's a wake up call to like reassess what's going on in your life and to reassess what's important to you and what you want to focus on. And at the end of the day, it's like a month to focus on you and your goals and what you want out of the next year. So I'm actually excited for January, she says. We'll wait and see. But yeah, bring me the cold weather and the chilly runs. I'm ready for it.
And what would you say to somebody listening to this thinking, you know what, like maybe they've watched your content, maybe this is the first time they're hearing and meeting you, like what would be your motivation to them for potentially, like, whether it be go to the gym or strap on a pair of trainers and get out the door?
My comment would always be, although I say I do it in memory of my dad, I'm still doing it for me. And there's been so many times where I've tried to get into a routine of working out and doing it almost for somebody else. Somebody else is telling you to do it. People around you are telling you to do it. And I feel like that's when it's never going to stick. The minute you find your purpose that is personal to you and it's you that's deciding to put yourself out there, that is when I feel like it truly works. And that is why I feel like I'm now in this position where I do feel like exercise and working out is so ingrained in me, because I made the decision to do that and I didn't have any outside factors putting any pressure on me. You know, you hear about like people going to the gym with other people, and that's great, but you also need to be able to step up to the plate for yourself, and not just rely on the other person doing that, which I probably need to do a bit more with my long runs, a lesson to myself. But I always think it's like the purpose of why you're doing it, because that is the reason that you manage to drag yourself out of bed every morning. And even if it's not with exercise, even if it's just in daily life. And then another thing, I actually had a girl message me earlier saying that like she's really bad at running and she's so slow and yada yada. And I just think that is such a like social thing that people have created, because there's no such thing as a bad runner and there's no such thing as a slow runner. Yes, there are people that are incredibly fast. That could be their full-time job. They could naturally be like that. There are so many things that are factors into why you're a quick runner. But even when we were doing the half, I was saying to Mo, if you do this in an hour and a half, an hour and 45, you do this in 2.5, 3 hours, you've done the same distance.
Yes.
Like, who actually cares about the time? You're still doing it. How long it takes you, it doesn't matter. It's just like anything else in life. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to get there. If you get there, that's still an incredible achievement. And I think because it's so great that so many people are online in social media talking about running and running, I think it also sometimes gives like a warped reality of running, because people think that they constantly need to be like pushing for a quicker time. And I'm like, no. Don't try and run before you can walk almost. And don't go in there thinking that you're going to, you know, like do this crazy 5K time, because it does take years to like get into your rhythm. And yes, some people are naturally just weirdly very good at running.
Yeah.
Good on them. Fair play to them. But for like the rest of us, it's a slow and steady wins the race. So I always think like don't compare to what you see on social media. I myself have even taken like a backseat on necessarily like posting my time splits, because I don't necessarily think it's helpful for everyone, because at the end of the day, if someone's getting out there and running a 5K or 10K, it doesn't matter how long it takes them, they're still running that distance. And that's insane.
And I think that shows that you do it for you as well, because you're not just posting things out there saying, hey, I did this or I did that. And sometimes to do it and be proud of yourself is cool, but sometimes like doing it all the time is becomes a bit stressful for you as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I always say to people, like, if you've got someone in social media who is making you feel lesser than, unfollow them. You don't need to follow them. Even if I was that to someone, I would rather someone unfollow me if they don't enjoy my content and it's not helping them. And it's like we kind of forget that we're in control of what we're seeing in social media, and you know, we can stop ourselves from saying things that aren't helpful for us.
We've spoken about your dad a lot. What would he think about this whole journey you've been on?
I think he'd think I'm crazy. Honestly, he would literally be like, what? He'd be like, what happened to you since I've been gone? Who are you? In the best way possible. Although my dad wasn't a runner, like he was very much into fitness and into the gym. And I kind of obviously already got into it whilst he was unwell. But I do remember like one of the last few things that he said to me was like, I know that you're sweet with it. I know that you will continue to work out. I know that like that's now ingrained in you. He was like, but your sister and your mum, He was like, can you get your mum to start going swimming? Can you? And then he was like, actually, I'm not sure your sister's ever going to get into it. So it's really funny that like even his like final things, he was thinking about us and our well-being with exercise, because he was very much the kind of guy that saw it as, you know, he wasn't doing it for his aesthetics, he was doing it for his headspace. So I feel like I was given the challenge from him to make sure that continues in the family, because he wasn't there anymore to do it. And to be fair, my sister now works out, has PT sessions, so does my mum. They do Pilates. You know, they're not runners, but they're doing their own thing. And that's the great thing of exercise, is that you can find the thing that really suits you. And that's kind of what my dad was pushing me to do with my sister and my mum. And we got there. So I think he's probably pretty proud of all of us.